Did you know that anger and shyness are actually two sides of the same coin? In this video, we'll explore the surprising connection between these emotional responses and how they both stem from the same illusion, the false sense of self or the ego. Discover how recognizing this illusion can help you break free from conditioned reactions and irritability, anger, and withdrawal, leading to a deeper understanding of your true self, ready to transform in how you see your emotions. I'm Roach, Mark Roach, sharing with you my journey, my very personal journey through overcoming complex PTSD. So these concepts of irritability and anger and their psychological roots, explaining how these emotional responses are not inherently traits of yours, but rather conditioned reactions that are tied to perhaps your sense of self, or what's called your sense of I, or how you define yourself, your identity. Well, the nature of irritability and anger, irritability and anger are not intrinsic characteristics. They're learned behaviors. They arise from our psychological and physiological experiences over time, and these emotions manifest as part of the ego's identity. And that can mislead individuals like you or me to believe that these feelings define who you are. Realize there's a spectrum of emotional responses that are possible. Compare anger and irritability to shyness and withdrawal. And I'd like to suggest that they're opposite ends of the same spectrum. Both responses stem from the same core issue, a misidentification with the feeling of I, or who you identify with, or who you might be seeing yourself as. Ego formation is paramount to understand to get to the bottom of this. The ego is formed when awareness gets intertwined with our psychological and physical responses. And it can lead to a distorted sense of self. For aggressive individuals, this manifests as outward expressions of anger, while for passive individuals, it results in withdrawal and self-pity. Pressure is also a factor here. Under stress, people tend to revert to these extremes, anger or withdrawal, revealing their underlying issues. This can lead to destructive behaviors, both psychologically, like depression or self-criticism, and physically, like self-harm. Awareness and identity are so important, and critical concept is that the idea of true awareness exists separately from these emotional states. True awareness exists separately from these emotional states of anger or withdrawal. By recognizing and separating from these feelings, individuals like you or I can begin to dissolve this false identification with their ego and the feeling of this identity that was this false identity that may have been formed earlier in your life. The path to resolution involves recognizing and observing these emotional states without attachment, allowing for the dissipation of this identity, of being identified with those feelings of anger, rage, or of withdrawal, or feeling terrible about yourself. And the process can lead to transformation similar to a spiritual awakening. And that can feel like a realization of who you really are, your true self. You know, it's kind of like what was spoken of in the Bible about how Saul transformed into Paul as a metaphor of what was really an inner transformation that took place. Understanding and acceptance. Individuals must understand that their emotional states are not their true identities, but rather reactions tied to their ego. Through awareness and observation, you can gradually detach from these negative emotional patterns. So self-awareness is essential to overcoming irritability and anger. By recognizing these emotions, we can separate from that core identity, false identity. Individuals, you can initiate a transformative process toward healthier emotional responses and a more authentic expression of yourself. I'm Mark Roach, wishing you all the best.